Hi everybody, Prairie Conlon here, again, licensed mental health professional, and as many of you know, animal-assisted interventions are what I do, and we have some trending news on emotional support animals, so of course I have to give you some feedback. So the new season of The Bachelor just aired, and on the show was, lo and behold, an emotional support animal. I'm a huge supporter of this form of treatment. Emotional support animals are a fantastic addition to treatment plans for those who need them. On The Bachelor, however, there was an emotional support cow. So here's the issue with this. Again, we're setting up people with legitimate emotional support animals to look hokey. There's no simpler way to put it. Now, before you attack me, let me explain the legal and the logistical purposes as to why a cow can never be an emotional support animal. But first, let me say this. I by no means discredit that this cow or someone's beehive or coyote isn't providing some sort of emotional support for someone. I get it. I understand. One of the most peaceful things I've observed is watching fish at an aquarium. I absolutely get a wonderful feeling of peace and serenity just watching them. So does that mean I need a prescription for them? Another example, I love watching sunsets. I get a scientifically based neurotransmitter boost by watching the sun mount into the horizon. However, we can't give prescriptions for those things, and let me tell you why. There are rules and there are boundaries to what we can do. An emotional support animal is, by federal law, granted privileges only in housing and travel. So again, an emotional support animal is, by federal law, granted privileges only in housing and in travel. To elaborate, for housing, per the Fair Housing Act, a letter stating you have an emotional support animal grants you the right to have your animal living in your home regardless of if they have a no pet policy or pet fees, period. This is what an ESA letter does for housing. So in this instance, what could an emotional support cow do? Could it would be granted access to live in the housing this individual has? Absolutely not, because what the Fair Housing Act says is that the only reason an ESA letter can be voided can be for one of the following reasons. One, if the housing provider has 4 or less units, which doesn't apply here. 2, if it causes undue burden on the housing complex, which it would. And 3, if it causes damages or disruption. So I think it's safe to say that an emotional support cow can easily check off the boxes for the second and third reasons. Not to mention, cows are considered livestock, and there are zoning issues to consider. Many people think that an ESA letter means they can break all the rules, and that's absolutely not true. So let's look at the second and final reason that people can use an ESA letter. So the Air Carrier Access Act, which is a federal law, it allows you to bring your ESA on a flight with you without having to pay flight fees or having to keep them in a carrier, period. That's it. So how could this apply to a cow on a flight? It just doesn't. So to recap, an ESA, by federal law, only has privileges in housing and travel. The issue here is that there is a huge misconception that an ESA is something else, and they can bring animals in public places, and they can shirk all the rules because of the paper that they received from their doctor or therapist. Their doctor or therapist, whom they should have a therapeutic relationship with, by the way, should understand that this is what the letter's for. It's not merely just a statement that says the animal provides emotional support. If that was the case, we would have doctors writing letters that say sunsets help, that say walking outside helps, that fish tanks help. And they do help, but that's not what an emotional support animal letter is for. It's for obtaining rights in housing and travel, and it's something you have to qualify for. So in what capacity would a true clinician write a note for an emotional support cow, or for a coyote, or for a beehive? Again, I understand that this has validity in making them feel better. I'm not arguing this for a second, but writing them a note when they don't understand what it can be used for makes absolutely no sense. And it also hurts the emotional support animal as a form of therapeutic treatment. Emotional support cows by every single federal and state law are not a valid thing. Does the cow help her? Sure, without a doubt, I bet it does, that's great. But a letter should have never been written stating that. As we know, ESAs, again, have two privileges by federal law, housing and travel. We need to stop making a mockery of alternative treatments and stop giving naysayers the leverage they need to take the two privileges that emotional support animals do have away. Because if we keep this up, there are two outcomes for the emotional support animal as a form of treatment. Either you might be living next to a beehive in your apartment complex and sitting next to a cow on your next plane ride, or, and I hope this doesn't happen, emotional support animals go away altogether. Either option, it sounds like we'll be dealing with a bunch of manure. So let's cut the crap and start respecting this treatment for what it is.